Well, my name is William Edward Taylor Jr., and I'm 85. Well, we'll be 85 years old here in a little bit. And I served in World War II in the U.S. Navy, and I was aboard a U.S. Herald of the Morning, AP 173, and I was took my training in Camp Perry, Virginia, and I spent my training there. And from there, after I got my training, I come home and stayed with my parents 11 days. I got 11 days furlough. And after 11 days, I went back to Virginia. And then after I stayed there, I think a couple of days. And then I was transported from there on a train. Back then, it was train, not an air flight. It was I rode 5 days and 5 nights from there to Shoemaker, California. And in California, stayed there a few days. I went over from California over to Bremerton, Washington. I stayed there for a few days in Bremerton, Washington, and then from Bremerton, Washington, I went to Everett, Washington, and climbed aboard my ship. It was in the dry docks, and when I went aboard, then I spent the rest of my time on the U.S. Herald of the Morning in the Pacific Ocean, and that's where that I was at when I was in the service, and and I can't think of the year that I went in, but I was 16 years old. I think it was 16 years old when I went into service, and then I served my time, and I came out, and I believe I'll tell you the truth. I don't know for sure. I think it was 42 when I come 42. I think when I come out, got discharged, and come out of service. And then I was in the reserve 7 years, all total. In my service, I served our country for 8 years. And then I got discharged. And if there's anything else you would love me to tell you, but some things I can't tell you, but I'll tell you what I can if you got any answers for me to answer from now on.
Well, 16 is very young to join the
No,
service.
well, I might have been wrong. I believe I was 18 when I went in. I'm sorry about that. I think I was 18 years old when I went. See, I was drafted in. I didn't volunteer. I was drafted. It was a must. I had to go. I had to go in service.
What was your job on the ship?
I was a seaman. I was seaman first class, and I didn't have a lot of rankings, but I was I worked on the deck, stood guard, and I was assigned to a gun on the I believe it was I forget what kind it was. It was I forgot what kind of let's see. I forgot what kind of gun I used when I was in there. It was one where I could, it was strapped, it fit over your shoulders, and you was strapped in, and you can do any direction, and you could shoot an airplane if you had to, or you could see, you could just turn any way you want. I think it was 20, no, I don't think it was pretty good going, but I forgot what millimeter it was. I mean, you could just, if you could, when you, it's all the time, it's sort of like a machine gun. It was, you could just keep her firing all the time, whatever direction you wanted to. I was in a sort of like a seat, and I could go all the way around any direction I wanted to with that. I was buckled, that was just fit around your shoulders, like a curve like fidget you buckled in. Some of you guys might know what that was, but I forget what the name of my gun was I was using.
Do you did you stay in contact with anyone you were in the service with?
Did I what now?
Did you stay in contact with anyone you served with?
Contact.
Yeah. Do you still know any of the men that were on the ship with you?
No, ma'am, I got a picture of every one of them hanging on my wall at home. I got a big picture of my ship. I got a picture of my commander and a picture of me up on my wall. Above my kitchen, we got a little kitchen and sort of a little, it's a den and living room all combined, you know. And like this thing up there, I've got all my stuff up over top of it, like what it was when I was in the service.
Did you have to use that gun? Were you in a battle?
Yes, ma'am, I used that gun. I sure did.
Do you remember the name of the battles that you were in? Which battle?
Oh, yeah, well,
You were in the Pacific.
yeah, it was the Japanese.
Any battle names that you could tell us?
No, I don't like to talk about that part.
What did you do after you got back home?
Huh?
What did you do after you got back home?
Well, after I got back home, I stayed with my parents, and of course, my father and them lived on the farm, and I stayed with helped my dad out some when I first come back, and then after a few years, I met that woman you see sitting out there, and but I left the farm and was on work with her on. I done a lot of construction work and all different kinds. I worked with pipeline companies and everything back when I was young and first started married. And then I finally bought me later on years. I bought me a farm, and 2 years ago, that's where I raised my family. We had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and they all married away from home now. But 2 years ago, I had to sell my farm on account of my health. Got a little health problems, and my wife, she ain't well either. And we live in town now. We sold my farm and we moved in town. And we've been there now for 2 years in a little town called Perryville, and here in Boyle County. And we got good neighbors, seems to be good neighbors around about us. We like to live in a pretty good community. And that's where we're at, and I guess that's where we'll spend the rest of our time we got here on this earth.
Did you receive any medals for your service?
No, I didn't receive no medals. No. The medals don't mean all that much, you know. I'm just lucky that I was one got to come home, and a lot of them didn't get to come home.
Well, we appreciate you talking with us. Is there anything
I
you
may
want to
not
say?
have much for you, but that's about all I can tell you. But I did enjoy the Navy, and I'm an old man now. And if it was that I said I'd have to go back to service of being this old, that's where I'd want to go, right back where I came from. I did love the Navy, and I know it's rough out there. But I did love the Navy, and I was lucky. I guess I got the Navy. That's what I really wanted well, if I asked for the Navy, you know, that's the last thing they ask you when you go out the line and you take your training when you get all the work you do before you go into duty. And they ask you what you want. Would you like to have the Air Force or the Army or the Marines? And I told him, I said, they also asked me what ship I'd like to have. And I asked for a destroyer, but I didn't get that one. and but I did get the Navy. But out of my company, all the men that I trained with, to train for the service, I was the only one got the Navy out of about 120 people. I was the only one. The rest of them went different Army, maybe Marines, but I got the Navy, and I just one out of the bunch, and I was the only one got it.
Are there any habits that you started when you were in the service that you still do today? Any habits from being in the service?
Well, I can not really. You know, I thought about my service for a long time after I got out. Thought at one time I'd like to went back again, but I tell you what, if you'd ask me, I tell you what, you can ask me. I don't practice it. I never have since I come out of service. But I'm just going to tell you, I might not tell you this, but I can tell you what Uncle Sam can do for you. I call him Uncle Sam. I remember my service number, just like it was the day that I was in service. Been a long, long time ago now. 986-287-0. Yeah, it's something that's in you. It's up there, but will never come out. And I've never had to use that in no way or form or fashion. But that's what my serial number was in the Navy, is 986-287-0. Just like your Social Security number. A lot of people can't tell you, but that's been several years, and I can still tell you my serial number. If they was to call out when we was out in the line, we had to tell them a lot of that, you know. But that's about all. That's about all I can tell you. I rode a lot of rough water, and I rode. Cause the old boy says I rode up and over a lot of hills, and but it's rough out there at times, and there's a lot of other things worse than that.
Well, we appreciate your service. Thank you for serving this country. Thank you for talking.
I'm
with
glad
us.
to. I ain't sorry I had to. If I had, I'm gonna tell you, I might have always say you, if you got that cut off now, no, I might have always said that. But that's one more that we hadn't won, today we'd have been under another dictator. We'd been doing what somebody else told us if we hadn't won that war, and I'm glad I was part of it.
We thank you.